Hello and welcome to another Arsecast Extra, as always, with James from Gutterblog. James, good morning to you.
Morning, Andrew. How you doing? How's the international break treating you?
Amazing. Such fun. You'll know, obviously, that I don't pay a great deal of attention to international football, really, apart from tournaments. You know, when they're on in the summer, the finals. I'm just not that into it. But this weekend, given the the history, given the build-up, given the Arsenal involvement, I did watch the Republic of Ireland against England on Saturday. Yes. The Declan Rice derby, the Jack Grealish get-together, the Lee Carsley sing-along, all of it.
It wasn't a great one for the Irish, I would say.
No. It's fair to say it was not great. You know, Jack Grealish and Declan Rice having represented Ireland at under 21 level, and Declan Rice, of course, played for the senior team 3 times, but not in a competitive game. They were roundly booed by the home fans. Bit of pantomime booing going on there. So who pops up with the goals?
I know. Absolutely incredible. I mean, you couldn't script it, or rather you would script it, but the chances of it happening seem ridiculous. And yet, and Declan Rice, of course, with the respectful no celebration against his former country. Yes.
I mean, it has been done before. Somebody pointed out to me on Threads yesterday. I can't remember. I meant to get it in front of me before we spoke, so apologies to whoever it was. Mentioned that Lucas Podolski did it. He did it when Poland. He scored against Poland. And it could have been Breland Bolo, who didn't celebrate for Switzerland against Cameroon. I'm thinking off the top of my head. I really ought to get this reply up here. But yeah, it has been seen before, but very rarely you see that. I'm not celebrating against my former country. It comes from Picky Maskey on Threads, who cites, Poland for Podolski and Cameroon for Mbolo.
Wow. I mean, you don't see it too often.
No.
But I think he should have gone for it, torn up the passport. Do you know what I mean? Go full pantomime villain.
I think if we know anything about Declan Rice, that's not really his. He's a people pleaser, isn't he? He'll say what he thinks people want to hear. Yeah. For better or worse, I think that's good. I mean, he did say it would have been really disrespectful of me. My nan and granddad, my dad's side of the family are all Irish, and they've obviously passed away. They're not here anymore. They've obviously passed away. I have to say, it did give me a bit of a chuckle. Not that they've passed away, but just the footballers speak way in which he referenced that.
Of course.
But I thought it was quite funny, really. You know, he's sort of the hands up and everyone else is celebrating. Jack Grealish, of course, stuck his fingers in his ears when he scored from a Declan Rice assist, no less. And I mean,
he hates folk music. He hates traditional folk music.
Fucking Riverdance.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of unreal, and especially we had the whole furore. Is that the correct pronunciation of that? Furore?
Furore, I would have said. Furore.
You're Irish. Can we trust this? No. How should I be pronouncing it as an Englishman? That's what I want to know.
Furore.
Yeah. Furore. Over whether or not Carsley would sing the anthem. Were you aware of this?
I was aware, yes.
Particularly British teacup.
What I mean, honestly, what a load of bollocks.
I know. Sven sang the anthem. That's what a lot of people say.
Did he?
He's disrespecting the memory of Sven. Apparently Sven did, which to me seems really weird.
I think it's completely weird. That people get so worked up about a song. Sing it or don't sing it. Who really cares?
Yeah.
But, you know, it's this thing. You know, Lee Carsley played 40 games for Ireland, you know, in the green and white, and has come back to, you know, Lansdowne Road, where he played many of those games as the interim manager of England. And I think just as a basic modicum of respect, you don't sing the national anthem of the another country when you've represented that country and you're in that country. That seems common sense to me. Like, if you're talking about disrespect or whatever, you know, the people would jump on that if he stood there belting out "God Save the Queen," or King rather. having played for Ireland. And like, if it was the other way around, if an England international was managing Ireland and came to Wembley in charge of Ireland and stood there singing the Irish national anthem, could you imagine the fucking pelters they would get from that section of the English press? I mean, it's just absurd. Do you know who I saw giving out about this? Like I don't know, that bloke who used to play for Spurs. That bloke who used to play for Spurs, beyond the sort of old dinosaur guys writing in the Telegraph or whatever. You sort of expect that from them. But the guy who used to play for Spurs, what's his name, James? Say his name.
Oh, for real? Yes. I was just sort of throwing out who's the worst pundit.
Say his name out loud.
Jamie. It's a good English name, isn't it?
Yeah, what's his surname?
Jamie O'Hara.
Jamie O'Hara, yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck's sake. I mean, what a load of bollocks.
Well, listen, I've got a foot in both camps myself. Andrew,
yes, of course.
It'd be difficult for me,
Yeah.
It would be difficult, but I would ultimately go through with the burning the passport celebration because you've got to give the fans something to go home and talk about.
Yeah. I mean, after what happened last time England were in Dublin, it's a shame that there wasn't more incendiary behaviour from the players on the pitch.
That's true. It was interesting. I mean, we welcome us English people welcome Lee Carsley to the managerial hot seat. I sort of think it's more a question of what he has to do to not get the job, to be honest. Like, he's got like potentially half a dozen games or something, before they might make an appointment. And I kind of think it's his to lose. And there were some interesting things about the way England played. I mean, they put Trent Alexander-Arnold at right back.
Wow.
I know. Carsball begins in earnest. And I've got to say, Trent's pass in the lead up to Rice's goal was a thing of beauty, right? It's almost like he's quite good there.
Good at football and good at passing the ball from his natural position.
Yeah.
Rather than a guy who's just kind of big and strong and runs up and down. It is a development, for sure. I mean, look, in all seriousness, I watched the game. England looked... having spent a lot of time looking at England during the summer and talking a lot about England during the summer under Gareth Southgate, England looked a lot more balanced, I think, with Trent at right back, with Anthony Gordon on the left-hand side. And Rice and Grealish aside, obviously that aspect of it is the thing that makes the most headlines. I mean, what stood out for me was just how comfortable it was for England, how comfortable England looked in possession, how comfortable England looked at getting the ball back without really having to do a great deal. The Irish defenders or the Irish players, as soon as they got the ball, just basically hoofed it down the field. Yeah. It wasn't even as if there was like this amazing English press that was putting them under a lot of pressure. It was just like, oh, fuck. What am I going to do with this?
It's not a great Ireland team, I would say.
No, I mean, man for man, the golfing quality is basically ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah. Even Roy Keane in the studio we had on ITV was sort of loath to criticise Ireland because he was like, the gap is just
it's huge. Huge.
But I thought it was interesting seeing Declan Rice as well. We've had a lot of conversations about what's his role going to be at Arsenal this season. And, it seems like it's going to be a deeper one if and when Mikel Merino recovers. I mean, to be honest, that could be some time yet. But England seem to really be keen to use him in a proper box-to-box role. He's making a lot of forward runs, getting into the penalty area. Scored a really nice goal, actually, a really good finish. And just interesting to see that, he definitely does have that dimension to his game.
Yeah, there was there were a couple of questions, actually. Le Crusade 15 on Threads says, what do you make of Ireland's 2-0 win over England? He said the other way around, obviously. But he said, in all seriousness, what do you make of Rice drifting over to the right-hand side of midfield? He linked up well with Saka. There was another question about Rice playing slightly more to the right on England. Comes from Duncan Roberts 1 on Threads as well. He said, I was impressed with Rice playing more towards the right-hand side. He's usually hanging out to the left, even as a 6. And linking with Saka, do you think this bodes well for where Arsenal's own system might be moving towards?
There was a bit of it in the Euros as well. I seem to recall that maybe when Saka scored that late equaliser in the knockout stages, the goal from outside the box, I feel like that came from a Declan Rice pass as well, out on the right-hand side. I might be wrong about that, but I seem to remember there were a couple of moments where Rice almost went over and did that kind of Martin Odegaard thing of giving Saka a wall pass and someone to play off. I think, to be honest, there's some logic to it. I suppose it's just a case of sort of using players who've got good relationships, club relationships, closer together on the pitch. Whether or not that will have any knock-on effect at Arsenal, I'm not so sure. I think, really, England are doing that to try and unlock Saka, whereas I think at Arsenal, with Ben White and Martin Odegaard supporting him, I think we've got that down. There's no obvious need necessarily to shake it up.
Yeah.
Unless you're really trying to fix the left-hand side, which
maybe.
One of the questions you mentioned went on to talk about that. Could switching Odegaard to the left unlock the left-hand side in some way? It just feels like that triangle on the right is such a strong suit. I wouldn't be in a hurry to move away from it. But it was interesting to see that, and I liked that little boy who came on for England in the second half, the tiny midfielder. Angel Gomez.
Angel Gomez, yeah.
Yeah. I felt like he was like strikingly small. It's unusual, isn't it, to see a guy who's like 5'6" on a good day, maybe.
Well, I suppose there is some precedent with players like
absolutely
N'Golo Kante.
Claude Bakalele wasn't the tallest. Lassana Diarra, he reminded me of Diarra a little bit. No, I'm being a bit facetious about his height, but I actually really liked him. I thought he looked really tidy. I mean, you have to be a hell of a player to play in the centre of midfield, especially in France, which is a very sort of physical league, particularly in that part of the pitch, and be that small. And I thought he was really, that's been a problem position for England, but I thought the way he showed for the ball, the way he retained possession, the way he kept it moving, I really liked.
Yeah, he's an interesting...
Could it be the fabled Calvin Phillips replacement?
Maybe so. I mean, he's an interesting option because, I do think Kobbie Mainoo is a good player, but maybe not quite as good as some people would have you believe.
Yeah. Maybe not yet.
I would qualify that with yet.
Yeah,
I hadn't heard of him before he was called up, actually.
No, I mean, he'd been at United, I think, and I'd seen he was quite well thought of then, but he's made a career for himself in France. I genuinely thought, like, really eye-catching player. So that was quite interesting.
Rice,
other than that, it wasn't much of a contest.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't really. Rice did 90 minutes, despite taking what looked like a fairly heavy kick at some point. And Bukayo Saka, of course, did 90 minutes because it's he has to.
Sure.
For every manager he plays for. What else?
Well,
Riccardo Calafiori.
We must talk about Riccardo Calafiori.
What the fuck is that?
I don't know, Andrew. That injury, it's like something from the board game Mousetrap. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like the most unlikely sequence of events.
I mean, when have you ever seen that happen? Where a player goes catapulting through the air and lands with his studs on the back of another player's leg? I will tell you when you've seen that. Never. Never, never, never. And I'm not sure you ever will see that again. It's like if an Arsenal player in the next few days, like we wake up to the news, well, Martin Odegaard is out of the North London derby. It turns out a plane flying over the stadium dropped an anvil and it landed right on his foot and he's going to be out of action for, a year. I wouldn't bat an eyelid.
Yeah. It's all like stuff that would happen to Wile E. Coyote.
Yeah. Yeah, slight Roadrunner fucking shit going on with this. I mean, the initial story was, he'll be fine. Well, Spalletti said, well, with our doctors, we think he'll be fine. And then it turns out that gave me a real worry, actually. Well, with our doctors in the secret laboratory. But it turns out he's returned to London. The reporting is that it's still just a knock. And part of me is a bit dubious, though, because international managers tend to just keep players around. If it was just a knock, it's just a knock. Do you think there was maybe any consideration given to the idea that he was, or has just started his career at Arsenal, just made the transfer, let's not take any risks and make life and his integration into his new club, new country a bit more difficult? Or does it maybe just suggest that the injury is a bit worse than Italy first expected?
I hope that what you're suggesting is right, and they've kind of looked at the situation and thought, let's do what's best for the player. What the Italy manager didn't say, he said, he'll be fine with our doctors. But obviously, as Calafiori went into the doctors, he slipped on the massive banana peel right at the door, skidded along the floor, and then hit a wardrobe, which fell on him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think, listen, it was a kind of insane. I was thinking that this might be, like, if you take your kind of frustration at some of these events out of it, one of the funniest starts to the season I can remember. I mean, in the first game, we had somebody choke slam one of our players on the pitch. Another guy grabbing somebody's bum. We had Ben White smashing a ball at John McGinn. We had Declan Rice, obviously, being sent off for, as far as we could tell, almost nothing. Calafiori...
injured by a flying Dembele. Sounds like a trapeze artist, doesn't it? The Flying Dembele brothers.
The kind of injury that suggests someone has placed a very powerful curse on him.
Fuck you, Pep. Fuck you, Pep.
Yeah. And, of course, Declan Rice scoring against his former country and no celebrating. There's been a lot of stuff that's made you go, that's quite weird.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It makes me slightly trepidatious as to what is going to happen next.
Well, I mean, if it is going to be the funniest season of all time, I suppose the ultimate punchline is Manchester City's relegation.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So it might all be worth it.
Well, it would be. It just seems that all the stuff is happening to us so far.
One small flaw in the plan.
Yeah.
I mean, other than that, I don't know. I know David Raya played for Spain and by all accounts did very well.
He did, yeah. Played both games for Spain, so I think he's done and dusted now. They've played twice. Thomas Partey played for Ghana. Jakub Kiwior apparently had a terrible 45 minutes for Poland in their first game because I saw him come off at half-time. I was looking around just before I was doing the blog. I was like, oh, okay, I'll check, see what happened. Came off at halftime. I'm thinking, oh, you know what happened? He was about to clear a ball and there was a roller skate and a load of marbles and he went careering off the pitch and has broken all his fingers or something.
Right.
But it turns out a quick search of social media for his name threw up some fairly critical reviews of his performance. So I think he was taken off because he played poorly and didn't play at all in Poland's game last night. They lost 1-0 to Croatia, so he didn't play at all. So I feel, he's obviously had a confidence-sapping start to the season with the arrival of Calafiori, the reintroduction of Timber. He's behind...
I think we just found out who put a curse on Calafiori. I think... Yeah, I mean, that's interesting because he was on a really good run of starting games for Poland. I think maybe he was close to the record in terms of consecutive starts.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like he leveled it in the Euros, maybe. So he might have passed it anyway. But he's been an absolute sort of stalwart and ever-present in that team. So for him to be unceremoniously taken off at half-time and then left out the following game tells you what sort of shape he's in. And I guess it's kind of understandable. He's played a really limited role in pre-season and an even more limited one once the competitive football's got underway. It's weird. There wasn't really a great deal of noise, though, was there, about him going out in those final few days of the window?
No.
Were I a betting man, I think it is something that will surely, unless Calafiori, keeps walking under ladders, then it's sure something that might be revisited in January.
Yeah, strikes me that is likely, assuming everybody is fit. But of course, that is a big if, considering the massive curse that has been put on us and the litany of comedy injuries that we're about to sustain over the next few weeks. Martin Odegaard was in action for Norway against
Kazakhstan.
0-0. Yeah, away at Kazakhstan.
The old low block problem comes to haunt Martin Odegaard again.
Is that what it was?
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I imagine so.
Well, they had Erling Haaland played as well, so not even a battering ram was able to get through. Who else? Gabriel played for Brazil. Played 90 minutes for Brazil against Ecuador, I think.
That's good.
Him. And who else is there?
Kai Havertz.
Kai Havertz,
Germany.
Scored as well.
Yes. Played off the front. Played as like a kind of number 10 almost.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there anything you can't do?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, playing most positions, right?
Yeah. Left back.
Did we need to sign a goalkeeper?
Did we need to sign another left back? We could have just
converted Kai. I kind of had a question about that, actually. Shall I?
Yeah, why not?
It was sort of relevant. But it's kind of about the midfield and Spurs and all that business.
Right.
But someone asked something specifically about Kai, but I can't find it. Calafiori, Ireland.
Right.
Well, let's go with this. Aaron said, "Morning, gents. Assuming no new injuries and no players returning from injury, what on earth do we do in midfield against Spurs? Do we move Kai into left 8? Or keep him at striker and do something creative with Partey and Jorginho? Perhaps even the fabled defender in defensive midfield."
I've seen a lot of this.
Is there a lot of that?
I have seen so much of this over the last week or so. Since actually the Rice red card, I've seen people have this discussion time and time again. You know, Timber in midfield. Maybe Calafiori in midfield.
Yeah.
It is Arsenal heritage, is it not? You know, to want to play a central defender or any defender for that matter as a defensive midfielder. I would be extraordinarily surprised if we saw anything like that beyond some kind of injury crisis that meant we were down to bare bones. I just can't see Mikel Arteta doing that. The question, I think, for me is like, what's the Gabriel Jesus situation? How does that impact what Mikel Arteta has to choose from for the derby? Because if you were to ask me to put some money on it, if Jesus was fit enough to start, I think it would be Havertz back in midfield and Jesus up front.
Yeah.
I think.
I think so too, but I don't know if he's fit to start. And one thing's for certain, Mikel Arteta ain't going to tell us.
No.
So if he's not, I think it might be a bit of a stretch for him to play based on what I heard at the time he got injured. If he's not, where does that leave us then?
Where does that leave us then? I mean,
do you think some version of Partey and Jorginho?
No, I don't think you can play both.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'd be really surprised if we play both.
Because I think there's quite a good argument if you can keep Havertz up top. Spurs play that high line, don't they? And he is a guy who could give them real problems running in behind.
100%. I mean, I would like Kai Havertz to play up front. I was just thinking about how Arteta might rejig things.
I mean, is there any chance he could pick Ethan Ranieri?
I mean,
in theory, he's kind of the next in line.
Yeah, I mean, if he's there, if he's in the squad, if he's part and parcel of the first team squad, which I assume he is now, he's certainly an option. He's certainly an option. It's whether or not Mikel Arteta would be, is it brave or would it be brave or has enough faith in him to throw him in for what would be his first start away.
It'd be a huge call.
It would be a huge call, but if he's ready, he's ready. And I think it gives you, like, if you ask me right now, would I rather see Nwaneri start as the left 8 or who else could he put in there? Trossard. He's played, you know, I don't like Trossard in there, to be honest. I think I would go with that. I would prefer that. The other thing he could do, of course, is play Havertz there, play Trossard as a false nine, which he has done before. Play Martinelli on the left-hand side because Spurs do play that high line. You've got the pace of Martinelli, maybe to get in behind, particularly when the Spurs fullbacks, I think, aren't brilliant positionally and do leave space in behind for opposition players to run into, and they've got the two centre halves to try and mop up the damage. That might well be something that he thinks about.
Oh, is this what you just said? Play Martinelli on the left and Trossard through the middle?
Yeah, with Havertz in midfield.
Yeah, I like that. I think that might be the best we can do, because although Martinelli is out of form, the high line should work in his favour. Trossard dropping in and linking things up, combining, Havertz running beyond him.
You know, is there something to be said for this game to perhaps cede a little bit of control/possession to try and exploit that weakness in Tottenham, where they are susceptible to players running in behind, and they have a back four that's very rarely in one line, you know?
Yeah. I like that, actually. I think that sounds like quite a healthy shape, because, Trossard, I'm with you. I don't think he is particularly good in that number 8 midfield role, and Havertz is, properly a two-way player who can give you something defensively, who's so physical in there. I think he's better at that job. But Trossard can certainly play that number 9 role. Or a version of it. And I think if you've got Martinelli, Havertz and Saka all running beyond him, I think that could be quite effective, actually.
Yeah.
I think we've actually solved it, Andrew.
Very good. Very good. Someone just snip this bit out, send it on to Mikel Arteta, because, no way he's thought of this genius plan himself.
No.
Not at all. Not at all.
So, Suburban Gooner Chris said there was a bit of chatter online for 5 at the back in the North London derby. Given some of the injuries and suspensions, can you make a case for Arteta shifting his approach to that?
No, I'd be very surprised. Don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know what that would look like.
I mean, it could look like White, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko. It could look like that, I guess. But
and then Partey and Jorginho with Odegaard. Partey and Jorginho with, I don't know. I don't think it's worth kind of disrupting our shape to that extent, especially when you and I have just landed upon this elegant solution.
Exactly. I mean, is there an argument to be made? And this is a question we've been asked before, and it does make some sense on a intellectual level, I suppose, but it's not something we've ever seen. Is Zinchenko as a potential option in midfield?
Yeah. Totally fair suggestion, I would say, but clearly not something Mikel considers a viable option. Like, he's had so many opportunities to deploy it. He has done it for the last 15 minutes of, I think, one home game against Nottingham Forest. But aside from that, we just haven't seen it at all. No. There must be a reason. He's clearly decided that's not his role. But, again, Zinchenko, if Zinchenko plays, that's another way in which you can kind of augment the midfield, even if he's playing as a fullback.
Yeah.
I'm not sure he will, because you've got Timber as well. But, yeah, that is one of the ways of kind of solving the midfield issue, is to put Zinchenko in and let him do his thing. Well,
we'll see how that one develops over the course of the week, I think. And there'll be plenty more discussion, obviously, between now and Sunday. And, we'll just keep everything crossed that whoever is away on international duty and still has games to play does not fall victim to the curse or the Looney Tunes injuries that I so terribly fear. Shall we do our transfer prediction thing? Because you know the way we always talk about it.
We don't need to look at this, Andrew. Don't worry about it, guys. We got everything right, and that's all you need to know.
Don't think that's true.
No, let's have a look. So we've got some people to thank who went back and listened. It was Jamie B over on the Discord, and then on email. Who did we decide?
Chris Lord,
of course,
and Jonathan Gladish.
Well,
they all sent.
We're very gladish that he undertook the work, so we didn't have to.
I mean, none of them said you're much wronger than the other one. That's really, really bad English.
What do you mean, Andrew? En anglais, s'il vous plaît?
Was one of us more wrong than the other, or did we just get?
I think we were kind of we're similarly wrong.
Similarly wrong in many ways,
and I think that's interesting. Shall I run through it quickly?
Run through.
So I'm going to use whose numbers are these? I'm going to use arbitrarily Jonathan Gladish's or Gladish.
Okay.
Whichever it may be. So he's helpfully sort of broken it out by position. So in terms of incomings, Andrew, we both thought we'd sign a forward. You said for about 60 million. I said for 55. The reality was we signed Raheem Sterling on loan with no loan fee.
And Chelsea paying a load of his.
Yeah. But, we're a chunk out there. At left back, you said we would sign one for about 23 million.
Right.
In reality, we spent about 38 on Calafiori.
Okay.
I said I didn't think we'd get one. So
right.
I'm well out there.
Get in me.
Yeah. 1-0 certainly to you there. Goalkeeper, we both thought we'd sign one. There was a bit of discrepancy. You thought we'd spend about 12 million. I thought we'd spend about 15. As we both know, we spent nothing really. We signed Neto on loan.
Yeah.
Marino, midfielder. We bought Marino, of course, for, 30 odd million quid. So you thought we'd spend 40 million on one. I thought we'd spend 50. So actually the club were more thrifty than we envisaged in that position. And then we both had a little punt on a kind of 8 to 10 million euro, pounds rather, Marquinhos type, signing out of nowhere. Someone, which didn't happen, full stop. So, Jonathan's numbers give Arsenal a total spend of about 65 million, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had us spending 143 million, and I had us spending 130.
Right.
So we were both
a long way off.
Right? You were 78 million out, and I was 65 million out. Now, I think that's really interesting because what that tells you is that we expected expenditure to kind of be at a comparable level to the last few transfer windows. And it quite dramatically wasn't. Like, quite a big...
Significantly not.
Yeah. Now that is partly because we did 2 deadline day loans that I suppose might have been signings, right? And, we saved a lot of money on not buying Joan Garcia, for example.
Sure.
But it's still a pretty noteworthy shift in spending strategy, I think.
I agree.
And maybe we should have seen that coming. Maybe it was inevitable after so much expenditure previously.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I sort of fell into the trap of thinking, well, Champions League revenue's in again.
Yeah.
We've got to push City all the way.
Yeah.
But evidently the club, I think, approached this window maybe more, what's the word? Carefully in terms of their expenditure than they have certain others.
Yeah, I don't think they would have been necessarily unwilling to spend big, but they weren't going to spend unless it was absolutely the right player to spend big on.
That's the thing. Like both of our shortfalls would practically have been made up by
the attacker.
A massive striker signing.
Yeah.
And I guess ultimately the club decided that wasn't there to be done right now.
Yeah.
Not making excuses for how wrong we are, but I guess that is partially an explanation. And I suppose we would rather the club. I mean, in that situation, I think keeping the powder, keeping the cash reserves back and doing a loan deal like Sterling, it does make some sense.
Yes, I agree.
Shall we look at outgoings?
Yes, let's do that.
So we'll go player by player. Eddie Nketiah. You thought we would get a meager 15 million for Eddie. I said 22. Deal's worth, we think, around 25. So
yeah, well done.
I guess
you win that one.
Andrew.
You win one. Eddie Nketiah.
Yeah. Emile Smith-Rowe.
I said,
how much did he go for?
30 or 27. I think, these could be like the basic fees with add-ons not included.
I've got 27 here, so I think it might rise beyond that ultimately. Because Arsenal, I think we're talking about it as potentially worth 34 if everything comes in for them. You predicted 20. I predicted 25. So there we go. I mean, Arsenal, Edu, the club, did better on those two maybe than we anticipated.
Certainly more than I had anticipated. So,
yep. Same is true for Aaron Ramsdale. Neither of us thought we would be able to get a fee for Aaron this summer, and the club got was it 18 rising to 25? So again, they outperformed our expectations on sales there. Reece Nelson, I said we wouldn't be able to sell, and that was proven correct. You thought we might get 5 million.
Yeah, I thought someone might come in with 5 million for Reece, but
I think the problem is that the club wouldn't sell him at that. I think they had a higher valuation, but the clubs who were interested couldn't stretch to it. Tierney, we both foolishly thought he would go.
This was, now to be fair, this was done pre-Euros.
Right, okay.
Where
that's fair enough then.
We didn't, not that we didn't anticipate, but he hadn't absolutely fucking banjaxed his hamstring at that point.
Yeah. So you thought we'd get 8 million. I thought we'd get 10. Obviously, he didn't go. That is kind of out of the club's hands. That's a tricky one. Quite mad that he still plays for us, though. And will we see him play? Imagine.
Who knows?
It feels so weird. Lokonga. You got this pretty much bang on. I mean, it's a loan with an option for 10. You said you think we'll get 10. I said I thought we'd get 8. I mean, the only thing about that deal that I've seen some people be critical of is that it's an option rather than obligation. So, we might be in this position again next summer. Let's hope not. Let's hope he does well at Sevilla. Nuno Tavares, you said 4. I said 3. We think it's an option for 6 or something like that.
Seems to be going quite well.
Rather.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, it seems to be going well. I saw, I don't know where I saw it, but a quote from Lazio's, I don't know, sporting director or president saying what a good player he is. But, we've had this situation with Nuno before. If you remember, when he went to Marseille, he was just fucking banging goals in, looking brilliant, and then it all sort of fell apart a bit. So we'll bide our time.
Fabio Vieira, we both said no sale, no loan. So we were right that we would get no money for him, but wrong because he left on loan. In a move that I think is still a bit of a surprise, but let's see. I see he's been speaking about it in the week and saying it was his idea, his initiative to go back to Portugal.
I didn't see that.
Which I guess makes some sense, really. I think he saw when he was out on the right wing, I think he saw the writing on the wall. Zinchenko. So we've got Zinchenko and Partey left. You thought Zinchenko would be sold for about 20 million. I thought he would stay.
You were
right. But I thought Partey would go for about 12 million. And you thought he would stay.
Yeah.
So
we cancel each other out there.
We cancel each other out. And actually on sales, we're kind of where we expected. You had a total of 82 million. I had a total of 80. And according to these numbers, we brought in 76. I think with add-ons, and when you add in things like Mika Biereth and Brooke Norton-Cuffy and little sell-ons that we've had here and there, we have actually exceeded our expectations on sales this summer. And that feels like a long time since we've been able to say that.
That's absolutely true. And with some loan fees as well. So, they did well. It just shows... basically trying to predict this stuff is a fool's errand.
Well, who in May or whenever we did this could have predicted Raheem Sterling signing for Arsenal on loan?
No, not possible.
It's kind of crazy. But yeah, I thought, I think it's interesting. And, you know, I think evidently the club did approach this window a little bit differently to previous ones. And I think one of the upshots of that is that it will hopefully grant them the flexibility to do things next summer too. You know what I mean? Like across the kind of 3-year accounting period, they've always got to be mindful of well, what if we need to go and spend big money in future? And hopefully a window like this enables us to do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, that seems like as good a place as any to take a little break and come back with some more of your questions. So we grab a cuppa?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. We'll be back with your questions and more in part 2 right after this. Welcome back to the Arsecast Extra. This is part 2 of the show where we answer the questions that you sent to us on Threads at Gunnerblog and at Arseblog. Also on the Arseblog Discord chat server, which you get access to if you are an Arseblog member on Patreon. Do you want to go first or will I go first?
You will go first.
I will go first. Okay, Big Hat McCready on not Discord, the other thing, Threads, says, "Morning, gents. We've seen a rise in players speaking out against the football calendar. If things continue the way they are, do you think there could come a point where the players take things into their own hands and strike? And given how the general public seem to view footballers' wages, how much support do you think they'd even get?"
Oh, I don't think they'd get much support. I have to be honest about that. I think that, you know, I know you and I have talked about this player welfare issue, and I think there's a certain type of fan who's like a super engaged fan, super invested, who I think would sympathise and empathise with that position. But I can see very quickly kind of how the media narrative around striking players might be framed, especially in the context of their pay. So that, I think it would be difficult for them to do that. Do I think it would happen? I don't see it happening in this country. I think partly because of that issue, because I don't think there would be the support for it. I think the football calendar and the football schedule is so embedded in our society. Look how devastated people are when there's an international break and you take the Premier League away for like
10 days or 2 weeks. Or whatever.
Exactly. Maybe if something were to happen, maybe it would be more on the international side. You know, maybe I could see a national squad saying we're not going to play these Nations League games or something like that. But I think it would be a big step. And then, I mean, look how upset people get when you don't sing the anthem. You know. Well,
that's it. Yeah, if you're getting killed for not singing a song,
country, there's nothing worse. Look at what happened to poor Ben White, right? So I don't see it. I don't see a strike. Do you?
No. I think what's been most instructive about any debate about football calendar is I think there is a widespread acknowledgement that players are being asked to do a lot and maybe do too much. That, you know, between internationals, club football, and you're talking about the top players, right, who are playing Champions League, who are playing internationals, who then, play most of the summer, come back, and there's no real break in the summer because summer is now about preseason tours and playing other Premier League teams in markets where you can generate more fans and ticket sales and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's nonstop. It is nonstop. And I don't really think there's any way of putting the genie back in the bottle. What I think has been instructive when I've heard this raised, and Mikel Arteta, for example, has spoken about it, he has said, what we need are bigger squads. If we're gonna have all this football, I think it's a pragmatic response to where we are. I think he knows it's not going to be a case that someone says, look, the lads are playing too much. They need 6 weeks off in the summer. We're going to have 6 weeks with no football whatsoever. So these guys can have a holiday. They can rest their legs. They can recover from injuries that they've been carrying all season. And then in 6 weeks' time, we'll go again because people will go, 6 weeks without football? What are you talking about? And that's not just fans. It's broadcasters and marketeers and the whole industry that exists around football now just means you'll never have less football. There will never be less football. So the only way to cope with more football is by having bigger squads.
Yeah.
And I think that is where we will go. I think that is far more likely than any kind of industrial action, regardless of how much that might actually be justified. I just cannot see that happening. And I think what will happen is, okay, you've got bigger squads, and this is what we're going to have to deal with now.
I mean, Andrew, it's already happening. We're living through it. You know, you and I started covering a game where you had 5 subs and you could bring on 3.
Yeah.
And now it's 9 subs and you can bring on 5, right? And we're watching that shift happen as it becomes a sport to be played by more than 14 people in the space of 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And I think it will continue to evolve probably in that direction. Yeah, I know it sounds absurd, but you know, we might see more substitutes introduced. We might see clubs truly having sort of different 11s they deploy in different competitions. I mean, arguably we do see that to an extent with the domestic cup. Because you're right, it's all driven by the commercials ultimately, and as long as there's demand for more and more football, there's probably going to keep being more and more football.
Yeah, that is the reality. What about this? And let me just follow on from this because we had a couple of questions in slightly the same ballpark. Garza on the Discord, do you guys think the new Champions League format is going to benefit us or hurt us? And Paul Thomasou on the Discord says, with so much going on the last 2 weeks, there was not a lot of chat about our Champions League draw. What do you make of it? Hard enough to be interesting? Gentle enough to give us a good chance of going through?
Yeah, I've got to be honest and say I kind of missed it in amidst all the sort of chaos of the final 2 days of the transfer window. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting draw. It's definitely a more interesting draw than the previous format, with some real exciting glamour ties. You know, hosting PSG, going away to Inter Milan. You know, which is obviously a fixture with significant history for us. Some unusual trips, you know, Girona's one that I don't think we've done before. And yeah, in terms of does it give us a chance of going through, I've got no idea, mate, because I can't quite get my head around what's going to be needed to go through based on the new structure of the competition. It's
sort of, I think it says something about this new format that I haven't been arsed to look up what it takes for us to qualify. I just assume like top 2 or 3 or something go through. I think the draw is quite interesting. It's funny though, isn't it? You know, we're used to 6 group games being played before Christmas. We're going to have 8 games being played. You know, the first one is on September 19th, so not that long ago or long away to Atalanta. But our final game isn't until the 29th of January. So it feels quite elongated in comparison to what we've had before. You know, so I don't know if that will hurt us or hinder us. I do think obviously 2 extra games means more pressure on the players that we have, and it's more important that Mikel Arteta is able to rotate his teams. I suppose one of the things you would look at is like, who have we got after these games? I mean, the first Champions League game away at Atalanta, followed by Man City away, feels particularly unkind, doesn't it?
It does. It does. That you know, and I think I'm right in saying we've got a day less recovery than City for that one.
Yeah,
which isn't ideal. By the way, I've just been reading up again, reminding myself of how we actually get through. Do you want to know?
Sure. Seeing as you've done all that research.
Yeah, well, right, exactly. So there's more teams in it this year, 36 clubs, effectively in one giant league. 3 points for a win, 1 for a draw. You know the drill. So the top 8 sides in that big league will qualify automatically for the round of 16.
Right.
The teams between 9th and 24th will compete in a 2-legged knockout tie to get to the last 16.
Oh, yeah, there's an extra qualifier.
So there might be another 2 games before you even get to the round of 16. Finish 25th or lower, and you are eliminated with no access to the Europa League.
You're out of here, buddy.
Now, to finish between 25th and 36th would be a truly disastrous campaign for Arsenal. I just don't see that as a realistic prospect, to be honest with you. So I guess really what we're playing for, the prize is one of those top 8 places because you save yourself 2 fixtures.
Yeah.
You probably miss out on some lovely gate receipts and TV revenue, but
you could do without. Around. Yeah. Okay.
So that's what we're looking for. We want to be in the top 8 of 36.
I mean, I suppose when you're looking at the fixtures, PSG is a tricky one, but it is at home. Inter Milan, tricky away. The rest of those, on paper, you're looking at those, I think, as winnable games.
Yeah.
For Arsenal, for this Arsenal team anyway.
Look, we should be beating Monaco, Zagreb,
Shakhtar.
Girona, Shakhtar. Like, those games should give us a good platform in this league. And it's how we do in the tougher ones, the Atalantas, the PSG, the Inters, that will determine probably whether we go through to the next round or have a 2-legged knockout tie. Yeah,
well, we'll see. Arsenal women, by the way, qualifying over the weekend, a 1-0 win over Rosenborg. They're in the draw today. I think it's taking place, starts around 1 o'clock, should finish about 7:30, given the way UEFA do these things. They are potentially playing, I think it's Juventus. I've got the teams here. Juventus, Hacken, Paris FC, Fiorentina, or Sporting for a 2-legged qualifier for the Champions League proper group stage. So,
it'd be great after the sort of slight debacle maybe of last season and not getting there. It would be really fantastic if they could this time.
Yeah. They've played well, I think, at the weekend. Only 1-0, but I think deservedly could have been a bit more. There will be an Arsecast, an Arsenal Women Arsecast, by the way. Tim and Jamie will have that for you tomorrow with discussion of the Champions League draw and much more besides. So you can stand by for that. Right, your question.
I've got a couple of Raheem Sterling questions, actually.
Yes.
He's been announced as number 30. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Which I believe, was that Yossi Benayoun's number when he came on loan from Chelsea?
Good question.
I think it might have been.
That's
sort of someone said to me that I was mad for using that comparison of like, it could be like a Benayoun, because they were like, Sterling's a much better player than Benayoun. But if he's as useful to us in this season as Benayoun was to us in that season, then it will have been a good deal. I tell you that. Yeah,
he was. He was quite decent in that season.
He was important. As I recall, when we got to the run-in, that sort of period where it's just you're grinding out wins, he was a regular in that time. Anyway, here are the questions. So the first one is from Crimson 505, and they say, "Morning both. I've seen a lot of talk about how Sterling can play all 3 positions across the front line. Do you think we'll see him to any appreciable degree in all 3? What are your best guesses about where he will play? And how will you feel about the signing once he scores a 78th minute winner against Spurs?"
I already feel quite good about it. And when he scores a 78th minute winner against Spurs, I'll be absolutely delighted.
What about the position?
I don't know, honestly. I mean, he feels to me like somebody who's played more on the left than on the right, but I see him as, potential backup for Bukayo Saka in certain games. So I don't know. I guess it'll just play out in time. I mean, we do have options on the left, of course, with Trossard and with Martinelli. So maybe he might be seen as somebody who plays a little more on the right. But as we know, things change. Players come with with one idea, maybe themselves or the manager has an idea about a player playing in a certain position, and then over the course of the season that changes, as Kai Havertz has shown. So I like the versatility. The one position I would be surprised to see him in a lot is central in the front three.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I don't see that being particularly likely. I just think Havertz and even Trossard, as we discussed, is probably ahead of him in the pecking order. I mean, we didn't talk about Sterling as a potential starter in that game, which I think is interesting. If you look at last season, he played everywhere really for Chelsea. Played on the left. I think he predominantly played on the left, but he played plenty of football on the right and some as a kind of number 10 or sort of supporting striker.
Mm-hmm.
I think his best seasons at City, to be honest with you, probably came a lot on the right. I mean, I'm just having a look now at like kind of 2016, 2017 period. There's a lot of football played on the right-hand side. And I do wonder if, given the lack of alternative backup for Saka, that's predominantly where we'll see him.
Yeah.
Nelson's gone out as well, which reduces our options. So I think I'd say the right primarily, but it will evolve, I'm sure. The second question was from Master Johnbury, and Johnbury said, "What would Sterling need to do this season for you to think it'd be a good idea for us to sign him permanently? Is it a number of goal involvements or overall quality of performance that you'll judge him on? Or are you in the camp that we should sign someone else regardless of Sterling's form this season?"
I think he would need to invent a time machine and make himself about 4 or 5 years younger.
Yeah. I mean, my answer was going to be take a massive pay cut. I mean, that's what he really needs to do if he wants a permanent move to Arsenal, because the 300+ thousand pounds a week he's on at Chelsea, that just ain't going to happen.
No. Well, I mean, let Chelsea pay him off. Let Chelsea pay his wages. They're the ones that gave him a contract. So, it is possible, I suppose, that if he comes to an agreement with Chelsea that makes it more palatable to take a pay cut to join Arsenal, it's not impossible. I just think in the forward line, we've got Trossard, who's 30. I think, you know what actually might work for him if it's a case that his season goes well and he plays well enough to merit, let's say, a 2+1 deal at Arsenal, right?
Right.
The one thing that might work in his favour is the fact that I think both Partey and Jorginho will be leaving, so there's maybe room for that kind of a veteran player in the squad.
Yeah.
You know?
That's interesting. Art de Roche pointed out to me that the word that Arteta used, I think when we signed Trossard, and he said the squad can absorb someone of that age at this time. And I think you're right. The next summer we might be in a position where, we could lose Partey, we could lose Jorginho, we could lose Neto, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So a number of experienced players could be on the way out. And I think Trossard's future is an interesting one. I mean, we haven't spoken about that. What did you make of the whole Saudi thing? Think it was just like never going to happen, no chance?
I think from an Arsenal perspective, it would have been just impossible to sanction any kind of deal, regardless of how the money, or like even if they'd come in with 60 million, it would be hugely tempting, obviously, to take that money for a player of his age. But I don't think we could have accepted it because we're not in a position to replace him in the squad. Like if we had like a 17-year-old hotshot winger bursting his way through the academy, maybe you would say, well, this is an opportunity too good to turn down from a financial perspective. Let's fast track the development of this kid. We've got Sterling in, we've got Martinelli. We can use this kid as a sub, get him involved. But we don't have that. There's just no way. And I think as well, we talked about Trossard maybe playing up front or as the false nine in the derby on Sunday. And I think he's too valuable a player right now for that deal to have ever been considered properly by Arsenal, particularly, the timing of it. If they'd made that bid in the last week of the window, maybe it might have been a bit of a different situation.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I suppose the reason I think it's kind of curious or is simply that Trossard's, what, 29?
He's turning 30 in December, I think.
30 in December. Contract expires 2026. He's definitely at an age where he's going to be looking at the situation and thinking, I need to think about what's probably my last big contract.
Mm-hmm.
And I suspect he probably thinks he's done enough in 18 months at Arsenal to certainly sit down with the club and ask for an extension. I don't know whether that's happened, but you have to imagine if you're Trossard's agent, that's a conversation you're sort of having with Edu at this point in time. And I think the club actually face a bit of a dilemma there. You know, do you extend him or do you sell? And I wonder if they'll try and kind of take a read on it over the course of the season, see how well he does, if he can sustain this form. Is he as big a part of things without kind of necessarily committing to that? But it's definitely a conversation and something that's going to happen in the next 12 months, right? Because he's not going to, I don't think it suits anybody for that deal to just run to its expiry.
No, probably not. I mean, what about this? We had one about Trossard from SoCal Ben on the Discord. You get the chance to sell Trossard in January and replace him with Eze. It's in budget. Do you take it?
I think you do take it, but I'm not sure they're quite the same player.
No, I agree, yeah. I agree.
I see Trossard really as part of the front three, and I see Eze as part of the midfield unit. I know he can play off the left. He can play off the left in an interesting way, a different way to either Trossard or Martinelli. But yeah, I guess you would do it in pure business terms. But if Trossard, by that point in time, is still scoring every other game and winning you matches, it's a difficult one. It's something to think about, that's for sure.
It is, because you may well at that point have reconfigured your midfield to include your big midfield summer signing, Mikel Merino, who hopefully is fit again, and an anvil hasn't dropped on his head, or he hasn't fallen foul to the Acme company and all their fucking gadgets. But obviously Eze is an amazing player and you'd love to have him in your squad. But like you say, I don't think it's quite like for like when it comes to Trossard.
And I don't mean for these sort of conversations about his long-term future to kind of imply I'm ready to, get rid of him. I really like Trossard. I think he's been excellent for us, and I'm really enjoying having him part of the squad. But I do think that he inevitably is sort of at an age where he is going to be thinking about his future. And he's not a guy, I think we can tell, even from his celebration the other day, who sort of, let's say he's a guy who knows his own value. And I think he'll want sort of some expression from the club that they kind of feel the same. Yeah,
that they value his value.
Yeah, and who knows if he entertained the Saudi thing or not. But if he did, perhaps it was part of the positioning around the potential of the contract or something, I can't imagine that he's desperate to go and play his club football there, which makes you ask sort of like, why is it on the table? Yeah. So it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. And, Saudi do have a track record of coming back for players. So I wonder if that conversation could happen again.
Maybe. We'll see.
Maybe. I mean, yeah. We've still not sold anyone there, right?
Not there.
No.
Not there.
We didn't have to this summer. No. Okay. What else have I got here? Doma, Raheem, Sterling's. Oh, this is quite an interesting one. So everyone thought the transfer window was over, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, not according to Footy Remarks, who says, "Goodly morning. There are quite a few free agents still without clubs, according to Transfermarkt, including," and you'll be excited to hear this, Andrew, "a certain Cedric Suarez."
Bring him home.
Are there any from the list that you would take? I'm going to send you this list now.
Okay.
On WhatsApp.
All right. I've got it.
Transfermarkt for putting this together. And yeah, anything there that tickles your fancy. I'll throw some names out while you're loading it up. Adrian Rabiot. Anthony Martial.
No.
Memphis Depay.
No.
That's not. It's a different Rafinha.
It's a different Rafinha.
Dele Alli, Andrew.
I'll take a pass on that one. Yeah. Are there any left backs that we could bring in?
Yeah, we could do some more left backs. I'm sure I saw Serge Aurier. Bring him home. Linked for many years. Sergio Ramos.
I mean, we want to avoid red cards.
Ivan Perisic as a left back. Cedric can play left back, of course, Andrew. Patrick Van Aanholt.
So many left backs.
We were linked with him once, weren't we? Like the depths of left back desperation. Do you remember?
Yes, I do. I mean, I suppose the one that I've seen people talking about Rabiot because obviously the Marino injury has taken the wind out of our sails a little bit, but I've always found him very, very underwhelming as a player.
Yeah. He's always felt like a guy, and I'm wary of sort of being too judgmental about a situation I don't know a lot about, but he always seems a bit more trouble than it's worth. Do you know what I mean? Like there's always something going on with this guy.
Yeah.
And I'm not convinced. I watched him in the summer. He played for France, didn't he?
He did, yeah, and was bang average all the way through.
Yeah. He played on the left, I think, mainly. Which I found very odd.
Well, it's very Deschamps.
Yes, of course. The kind of Blaise Matuidi role of like being a central midfielder on the left.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, no. I don't see the club, barring, more Acme disasters, I don't see them dipping into this particular pool of talent.
I see Carlos Vela is on the list.
Bring him home.
Bring him home. Just for the EFL Cup.
He was a really good player, but he's 34 now.
Yeah. No. There's nobody else.
Yeah.
Loris Karius, if you're looking for a comedy goalkeeper.
Well, we always want to sign a keeper, mate. We never close the door on signing.
Has he worked with Iñaki Kanya at any point?
I don't know. That's going to be an
maybe what's that thing? The 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Maybe there's a 6 degrees of Iñaki Kanya where he can sign any goalkeeper in the world because he's worked with so many others.
It is interesting some of the players who end up on here, like Davy Klaassen.
He used to play for Everton.
Yeah, he was a big money signing, as I recall. 15 million to Everton. Yeah. Played for Inter and Ajax. He's on there at 31. Brandon Williams was well thought of at the time as a left back. Yeah, it's a bit of a scrap heap, isn't it?
Yeah.
But no, I don't see Arsenal going to that particular mill.
No. What about this one? Or a couple of these, actually. Freddie LJ says, with the news of the two Chelsea owners looking to buy each other out, do you think it will lead to them going into the limbo Arsenal suffered in the KSE Usmanov era and that the investment/financial doping will stop? While JMart91 says, how funny are you finding Chelsea America Civil War?
Well, quite funny. It's an interesting one. Chelsea have always been framed publicly as kind of Todd Bowley's toy. But in reality, certainly for the last year or so, club is predominantly run by the other fella, Egbali is his name. And yeah, I think this sort of split, as it's being described, has potentially been coming for some time. I hope, obviously, that they suffer all kinds of repercussions from this. I hope that there are investigations into where all the money's coming from. I hope they're found to be in breach of loads of rules. And I hope, to be honest with you, the club is dissolved.
Yes.
I can't really say any more than that.
No, I watched a documentary over the weekend about the guy who set up the Backstreet Boys in NSYNC. It's on Netflix. It's quite good. A guy called Lou Pearlman. And I
can't wait to see how this comes round.
Right. But basically, he created Backstreet Boys. He created NSYNC. He created Justin Timberlake and Aaron Carter and all these, pop stars. And they immediately fall into this sort of super rich lifestyle, private jets, big tours, all that kind of stuff. Turns out the dude was running America's longest running Ponzi scheme. And this was how he was financing everything. My fervent hope is that these Chelsea people are running a Ponzi scheme, and it all unravels before our eyes. And like you, they suffer all the repercussions. And Stamford Bridge is turned into, I don't know, like what could it be in this day and age? What would properly represent what Chelsea and its history stand for? Maybe like a giant Starbucks. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah, I think that would be apt. I mean, I was being slightly flippant and facetious earlier, but genuinely, that is a club that it's just completely unrecognisable. And, as you know, my brother and many of my family are Chelsea fans. I'm not going to go as far as saying I have sympathy with them, but it must be a very weird time. I know it's a very weird time to be a Chelsea fan, because as much as we might have felt that kind of Abramovich's success was soulless.
It was.
Thank you. That's not how they perceived it, right? Like, they at least could kind of grasp an identity. And I think that, the involvement of some English players in that and an academy player in Terry at least gave them, they could sort of plausibly claim it as in some way organic, even though evidently to all of us it was not. But this Chelsea is just like a proper basket case, like crazy version of a football club. And yeah, I mean, man, I hope those owners get everything they deserve.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Let's sit back and watch it all unfold.
Let's keep
popcorn. The popcorn. It's time for that gif of Michael Jackson eating some popcorn.
Yes. Maybe we could project that onto the wall of the new Starbucks.
That would be good.
Yeah.
That would be good. Okay. Shall we do Critical T's player ratings?
Yeah, let's do it. An Interlull favourite.
It is. It is. But first, Andrew, I must find it. Okay. Let me scroll.
You got it.
This is going to be the best bit of the podcast. I've searched Discord for it.
Discord search is really...
yeah. It's really weird, right? Like, sometimes it's time for the player rating again. I found it.
Well done.
Yes. Okay. Thanks, Critical T. So there's no specific period of time on this one, Andrew.
Okay.
Which makes it difficult.
Right.
But let's start.
Okay, that does make it difficult because...
We've got 5. Yeah, I mean, we are...
You know how good my memory is.
I mean, yeah, I'd say you've got no chance, but we'll give it a go. Okay, rating 1, 8.5 out of 10. 2 goals. And the composure to put that penalty away with all the pressure and everything else going on around him belied his age.
The one that springs to mind is Bukayo Saka against Manchester United.
I think Bukayo Saka as well. Manchester United. Did he score twice in that game?
He did. We scored 2. Did we score 2 early-ish goals? No, we scored early with Martinelli and then... Oh, fuck, I can't remember. Or was it Liverpool? Bukayo Saka against Liverpool.
I think it was Liverpool.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I was mixing up the horrendous red opposition.
Wankers from the Northwest.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the answer is Bukayo Saka. Liverpool at home.
Yeah.
22-23 season, 3-2 win.
Yeah.
Okay.
I remember that. That was good. Okay, off to a good start here.
Rating 2, 8 out of 10. His first and perhaps last game in front of fans. But he was really good and has done enough, in my opinion, for us to try and sign him permanently.
I'm going to say, I don't remember the game.
His first and perhaps last game in front of fans.
Is it Danny Ceballos? And
yeah,
how wrong was I to fucking think we should sign him properly, actually?
So, would that, when you say last game in front of fans, is that like...
I presume it was like...
the start of lockdown? Or is that...
the end of... or when Fan did his loan end... I see. I can't quite remember the. I don't know why that context would be there, but he's the only one I can think of.
Okay, the answer is not Danny Ceballos.
Right.
It's Martin Odegaard.
Wow, I was right about wanting us to sign him then. So I feel better about getting it wrong.
Brighton at home, 2-0 in 2020-21. So, perhaps last game in front of fans. I see. So was it like he came in for... Did fans get in for the end of that season?
Maybe so, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds right, actually. And so he got a game in front of supporters, but it was the final game of the season. Well, very prescient. He has turned out to be a good signing.
It was the end of the 2020-21 season, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Was that entire season played behind closed doors?
I think it was, Andrew.
Fuck. That whole period is...
horror movie we were living through there. Rating 3, 8 out of 10. Like an annoying wasp, he buzzed around all day until he broke excluded opposition player. He buzzed around all day until he broke an opposition player.
Right.
Forced a petulant challenge from his compatriot that killed the game and then assisted Xhaka. Also hit the post early doors. Forced a petulant challenge that killed the game.
Right. And assisted Xhaka.
I think that Martinelli, in his pomp, is the most like an annoying
That's
wasp.
who I was thinking about, yeah.
Yeah.
But I've got no idea of the game. I'm going to say Martinelli, but got no idea about the game.
It is Martinelli.
Right.
And it's the home win over Tottenham from 22-23, 3-1 win. So the challenge, a petulant challenge from his compatriot, was that Richarlison?
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
That killed the game. Arsenal 3-1, Spurs 22-23. Yeah. We beat 10. Oh, they went down to 10.
Right.
Emerson Royale was sent off for a foul on Martinelli. There you go.
I had forgotten that Emerson Royale was ever a thing. Yeah.
Okay, rating 4, 8 out of 10. Maybe the slide wasn't a great idea, but he never touched opposition player who dived. But as we know, Mike Dean is a prick. 93% pass completion, 10 clearances. He's better than Cannavaro.
Oh, when you said the word slide,
yeah,
I immediately thought of Mustafi. But better than Cannavaro has got to be Rob Holding. And
the opposition player who dived, we can assume is Son, I think. So yes, it is Son, and the player is Rob Holding. But this can't be the game we lost. No,
you wouldn't get that kind of a rating. In
8 out of 10 would be very generous for that. Right at the end of the season.
I'm just trying to remember, when did Rob Holding have a good run in the team and have a good game against Tottenham? Is it the one where Lucas Torreira scored? Remember, really late on, Torreira scored a goal and made it 4-2 or something like that?
It is that one.
Right.
Very good. Very, very good.
Right.
4-2.
Okay.
And yeah, Kane obviously scored a penalty.
Of course.
And
Son obviously dived.
Son obviously died. By the way, we had a question about Rob Holding, which I'll just quickly see if I can find. Good morning. Perhaps a bit off topic, but Rob Holding has deleted all his Crystal Palace info from his social media. This is from Deepatch Cornwall. What do you think's happened there? It's not like him to complain. However, he's only made one appearance for them since joining.
Yeah.
Was this move a mistake? Was he promised playing time that's never delivered?
Don't know. It's a weird situation because Oliver Glasner came out during the week and said Rob is training on his own. He knows what it's about. That will stay between us. Clearly something has gone on there. I've got no idea, no insight. I did ask Dan from HLTCO if he knows anything, and he doesn't know anything as of yet.
No, I text our Palace correspondent at The Athletic as well, and I've not heard back from him yet. So I'd love to know.
Strange one, yeah. It's a bit. It would be like if there was a disciplinary thing. It feels like it would be very out of character for Rob Holding.
Very, but equally, I could understand his frustration. I mean, he's barely kicked a ball for Palace.
He has been injured a lot, though.
Of course, yeah.
So, weird one.
It is a weird one. And I suspect he is going to have to move. Bring him home. So then, rating 5, 10 out of 10. Got the winner on the final day for the second year in succession and backed it up with an awesome defensive display. Yes, there's an element of goodwill in this mark, but hey, I love the guy.
Got the winner. Is Lauren Koscielny?
It is.
And...
Oh, we're going way back here.
Yeah.
We're talking over a decade ago.
Right. On the final day.
It was the second year in succession he got the winner on the final day.
Newcastle?
That's it. 1-0 at Newcastle. 2012, 2013.
Yes.
Was the year before West Brom?
Was that the final day, that West Brom? Was that when Arsene Wenger was clinging to Pat Rice in terror?
Yeah.
That amazing Kieran Gibbs challenge.
Clearance, yeah. I think Koscielny scored maybe that day. But anyway.
Did Yossi Benayoun score that day?
Very possibly.
I think he might have.
West Brom...
It was 3-2 to
Arsenal. 3-2.
Arsenal.
It was a mental game.
Yeah.
Truly crazy game.
It was the end of the 11-12 season, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Koscielny nudged the ball in after Martin Fulop. Do you remember how bad Martin Fulop? I mean, there was talk of building Martin Fulop a statue in North London. It was that bad.
Yeah, I remember that. That one.
It was a memorable performance. So, yeah, wow, back-to-back final day winners from Koscielny to see off Spurs.
Oof. What a man.
What a man. And then he took his top off and we were all cross with him.
He didn't sing the national anthem either, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, listen, thank you to Critical T for that fun game again. I always enjoy those.
It is good fun.
It's like a sort of Arsenal crossword, keeping my brain alive.
Hanging on in there.
Yeah, exactly. All right, well, look, we better leave it there. It is an interlull, but as the week goes on, we'll get closer to the North London derby. We'll try and bring you some stuff over on Patreon as well. Like I said, there is an Arsenal Women Arsecast tomorrow analysing the Champions League draw. But for now, we'll leave it there. Thanks as always for being here, and we will catch you on the next one.
Bye-bye.